boys, girls, and all the above, tuning in for another 40k informant. Turn this down just a little bit more. Oh, nope, that's off. There we go. Sorry, it's a few minutes late. Family. My baby girl wanted to give me hugs and kisses before she went to bed. So, I'm going to do that before I hop on every time. But today we're tuning in. It is me, your host, Gordo, the guardsman. Like always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Anyone who gives it a watch, stops by, I really appreciate it. We're on our, don't quote me, I want to say 15th episode of 40k Informant. So we're slowly moving through it, getting them numbers up. I'm going to keep on cranking this out and see where we go. Today, first thing off the bat that I'm going to touch on is, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, is the 40k Exodite. I'm so bad at reading anything. But 40k Exodite, so if you check like the Warhammer community or take a look through their like YouTube and stuff like that, they released a trailer and a little article announcing that they're working with fan artists, so the gentleman who made Astartes and then other communities such as like I believe it was like the guys who made the Templar like Primaris, the last Templar one. I'm trying to remember offhand. I think it was like Lost Legion Studios, but they did say they were working with like Paxel Art, Codex Film, and they're going to work with the gentleman, I think his name's like Sayama Penderson, I want to say offhand, is the Astartes guy. So the only Astartes, not only Astartes, the Astartes on YouTube. Games Workshop is actually working with these people to create animations now. So it's happening. We're taking steps. GW is working towards pleasing the fans because they're using the fans to help make the content. I'm so excited for that. But the Exodite, man, however you pronounce it, this is a trailer for a animation for the Tau, and it looks beautiful. The Tau look great. Their ships look great. It's a quick like 1 minute trailer, so give that a look and take your eyes on it. Watch it like 7 times and try to analyze it because it is beautiful and I'm excited. I would love to see some Tau stuff. I love the Astartes, so I'm excited about that. And I've seen all the other fan-made stuff that the other creators have made, so I'm super excited. When there's not a lot of fan-made stuff out there, and for GW to start picking all of these people and start having them get basically backing from Games Workshop now, that blows my mind. That means we're going to be seeing some like high-quality shit that's like good. And I hope so. I hope it delivers. I hope we get some really good shit. Because, Astartes, like, it's amazing. And if you have that guy, we've talked about it before, his story doesn't require any talking. No one explains the story there. No one tells you what's happening. You just see it unfold and you know what's happening. He's storytelling through actions. So if you're telling me you're going to give me that same quality and then on top of it throw on some like nice quality voice actors, because you're talking Games Workshop. I mean, they've gotten some good voice actors before. Even their video game companies were like able to get like really good people for like Space Marine and Dawn of War and such like that. So I'm waiting for that, and I want to see it. I think it's going to be great. I'm still waiting and hoping. It's always the Space Marines. We're getting some Tau, but I really want a gritty Imperial Guardsman animation. That's what I want. I want to see boots in the mud. I want to see bayonets at the end of a lasgun. I want to see the troopers running around and dealing with chaos and heretics and orcs and everything like that. If you give me a animated adaptation of 15 Hours, which if you haven't read that book, you need to go look that up. Go look it up on Amazon. Freaking look it up on your Kindle or, whatever you got. Go to Barnes & Noble's. 15 Hours. It's a gritty book about Imperial Guardsmen and the lack of survival rate that they have. It's great. How's it going, Raddick? I'm doing good today. It's just, 15 Hours is a gritty, it's a great book. So you guys should definitely check that out. Definitely check out the Warhammer community page and read through the article talking about all the projects that they're doing. It's going to be phenomenal. And then you also have that Tau video. I think it just came out like probably March 10th, so it was like a couple days ago. So take a look at it. Hopefully we'll start getting some more trailers and such soon and stuff like that. I know that the Astartes guy was still leaking some of the stuff that he was working on still on his Patreon and stuff, so even he's still releasing things. So I wonder how that's going to affect it. Maybe he's not going to put them on his YouTube channel anymore or what. But the tower is bad as Eldar. I mean, Raddick, maybe. I don't know, man. I like the Tau. I mean, they had the video game, the Tau Fire Warrior. I thought it was okay. But I mean, that game aged not well. It's old and it's very bad now. But it usually, back then it was pretty decent. But I mean, the Tau are interesting because they're like one of the youngest races, but they're the ones that are the most technological advanced. They don't have psychers and they don't use warp travel, so it's interesting. They provide a different perspective on combat and everything that is needed in 40K because it's yeah, I mean, I do like their mentality too because it's very simple. They're willing to trade and barter with people, but if they need your resources, they'll give you an option: join us or die. So I mean, you can't hate them. They're the fish people version of the Roman Empire, and the Romans were badass. So yeah, I'm totally down with what they're doing. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to be 100% on the human side. So if I had to choose, it's humans all the way. But I like the Tau too. But yeah, if I was the Emperor, I would have soaked the Tau into the Imperial Empire and then just took them over. You craps flamers. But yeah, today straightforward, just introducing the next stuff that's coming out for what like the 40K community's working on. They're going to do that Tau animation. They're going to do more Astartes. They haven't said whether or not they're going to have voice actors in the Astartes. I would probably bet that they will. I'm just hoping that they don't make the same mistakes like they did in the Ultramarines movie. Like, I don't want to have scenes of people wearing helmets talking to each other for multiple minutes. Like, if you don't know what's going on in the story without sound, then I don't think you're telling the story properly. So like Space Marine, I don't want that. I feel like that's a waste to animate someone standing still talking with a helmet on for like 5 minutes. So hopefully they avoid shit like that and we get a really good, story dropped on us. But again, still waiting, hoping, praying that we're going to get some gritty Imperial Guard action. I would really love to see that Imperial Guard animation, but we'll see how it goes. Besides that, in the RPG realm, I do have... So we talked more about Halo Mythic. How do you feel about the whole Magic the Gathering deal with 40K and Lord of the Rings? That's gonna be weird. I played Magic the Gathering like way back when it I don't know when it first started around, or actually I don't know how old Magic the Gathering is, but I played it, I want to say like almost 10 or more years ago. But I'm fine with it, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan. I don't play it anymore. So, if you want to throw stuff in there, I don't really care. I'm sure there's hardcore fans that probably are a bit iffy, but I mean, yeah, Games Workshop has always had a deal with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Like they make a tabletop for it, and they have for like the longest time. You've been playing it for four years now. Uh, yeah, I mean, if they do it, then that's fine. But 40K has had its own card game for a long time. Like at least, I mean, it's got to be at least 8 years now. It was pretty long. So I mean, I don't know why they would do that. I mean, but also then again, they might sell a bunch because of that. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that's one of those things you just have to wait and see. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And that's it. But I always thought Magic the Gathering was more fantasy than sci-fi. So like Lord of the Rings, I can kind of understand, but I don't know how Space Marines are going to fit into that. But then again, I haven't played it in a long, long time, so for all I know, there could be giant robots and fucking space guns and stuff in there, and I don't know it. So, you know, it is what it is. But, yeah, I mean, as far as 40K, they've had their own card game before. I never did it. That's just not my thing. 40K, it was always a tabletop or an RPG or a video game to me. It wasn't really anything else. I think the most simplified version of 40K I ever did was actually just painting the models. I never did like the card games. I didn't even really play the Space Hulk board game. So and they've had a lot of board games and stuff like that. Games Workshops has dabbled in a lot of different things. So it's like when people ask me what do you think about them doing this? Going mainstream, I think, was their goal. Getting to, I don't know. Games Workshop is pretty. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't call it mainstream, but I mean they have a fan base that's like ancient. Like they've been noticed and they're noticeable, and people who play in hobbies that involve dice genuinely know what 40K is, whether or not they play it. Hold on. I don't know how that got in there. Sorry about that. I don't want to. I was making sure I wasn't getting like copyright struck. And I gotta fix this playlist. I don't know why this playlist changes every time, because it hasn't played through everything I selected. But alright, there we go. That should have fixed it, so it should be okay for right now. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Copyright. I don't want to get hit with that. I'd like to lose maybe a few seconds of my video, but not the entirety of said video. But, yeah, I mean, Games Workshop has done a lot of stuff. So, they've done ancient historical battles with Romans and stuff like that before. They've done Lord of the Rings for the longest time. They have multiple board games. Space Hulk being one of the main ones. I mean, even like Inquisitor. Like, people forget about Inquisitor, but Inquisitor was like a tabletop game where the models were like significantly larger. So I mean, like a Gene Stealer was like a 5 or 6 inch model, and you only had to buy like 1 or 2 models to play that. Now, I mean, they also did Epic, which I think they're working on bringing back. I know they have the Titan game, but I don't think they have like a full-fledged Epic back. I know they're trying to bring back Battlefleet Gothic. I'm hoping those come back, because you know what? It's like, I would play Epic, I would play Battlefleet Gothic, but I'm gonna stay away from the 40K tabletop. It's too often and too many times now where I have to purchase the newest models, or I'm just gonna get my ass kicked. I'm like, the last time I was playing 40K as a Space Marine army, I had like almost like $20,000 probably like spent into my army. And that was over the course of like 12 years. You get like $50 here, $50 there. Was it 20K? Yeah, it's probably close to 20,000. It was a lot of money, and it was a lot of models, but it's not worth it. It doesn't feel like it's worth it anymore. I feel like you just need to buy like 1,700 points worth of models, and they have to be the best build, and that's it. And it's like, that's all people do. They buy like 1,700 points worth of models, so they're spending like $300 to $500, They're getting the best build so that they can just try to win, and that's it. Um, and that's the thing, is that when they start having new and new models and races and stuff come out, they're just wanting you to just dump money into it. So I'm like over that. But yeah, Epic, I would play a shit ton of Epic. I loved that stuff, man. You had your Titans, you had like legions of tanks, you had entire like multiple squads like on a single tile. Like you could play with hundreds of Marines, and it was awesome. So I hope they bring that back full fledged, give us all the races, and make Epic like really good. But I'm pretty sure we're just cutting the model sales. No, yeah, they're not. Yeah, GW's not afraid of getting their hands dirty or anything like that. But they just kind of do what they want to do to cover their bottom line and make sure that they make money. When they figured out how to make models cheaper with resin, like there's a company that makes Flames of War, which is a 6mm World War II game. So when they figured out how to make their models cheaper, they reduced their price. When GW figured out how to make their models cheaper, they increased the price. So that's just how they are. That's their mentality. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, and in a business sense, Epic is the 6mm scale of 40K. So you're talking about your average Space Marine in 40K. He's a 28mm, so he's about an inch and a half tall. On 6mm scale, they're like less than like a quarter of an inch. They're tiny. They're like a Tic Tac. And they would have like 10 or 20 Space Marines per tile, and they would just be in a row. So you wouldn't be playing with like a few models, you'd be playing with like entire units. And so you would, because on that scale, a Titan is like a couple inches tall. So, that's what you would do. Land Raiders would come on the little tile that would hold like 4 of them. Rhinos would be on the tiles that would hold 3 of them. You'd be playing with like a lot of stuff. And I loved it because that made apocalypse battles easier. So you would sit here and you'd pull out your army and you could play on the same size board that you would a regular 40K game, but now you have hundreds of Space Marines and stuff. So it was a lot better, and it was really cool. But they discontinued that. I'm sure it was awesome. And they brought it back for the Titans, but I don't know if they brought all the other units back. So I don't know if they have the infantry and the tanks and stuff like that. They might, but I haven't looked too hard into it because when I saw it a while ago, about a year ago, it was just the Titans. So hopefully they do bring that all back. And then Battlefleet Gothic is just the ships. So is the ships, and those used to be made out of pewter, and some of the parts were plastic or resin, and you would just play space battles in 40K. So you would they had like the Tau, the Tyranids, the Orcs, the Imperial Navy, Space Marines. So it was pretty good. And it was the same thing as like Battlefleet Gothic Armada, like the PC game. So I hope they bring those models back too and do more of that, but I think they were. So that's going to be really good. But it was good stuff. But from a business sense, Games Workshop, I gotta give them credit. They're doing great. They're making money. It's like the stuff with like EA. Like, people were really upset with EA and how they handled the Star Wars games, but the Star Wars games look beautiful. And I've played them; they're pretty good. But it's like I wouldn't have paid full price for them. I don't like the microtransactions, and people really hated EA for that. But EA made a shit ton of money still. They made a lot of money still. They didn't lose any money on that deal. So I got to give them that. Is that some places can still be shit on basically, but they're still doing like their job and they're still making the hustle. So I'll give them that. But hopefully GW starts getting some more stuff out and we start seeing some things. But in the meantime, they do still have a lot of tabletops out. But I really want people to go out there. You gotta like look around. You gotta try different stuff. Don't just get hooked on like the other companies and stuff. Like Games Workshop's pretty much one of the biggest. But that's like if you go to play RPGs and you only play D&D or Pathfinder. Like those aren't the only ones. They're just some of the biggest. It's like go play something different. As far as tabletops go, there's Warlord Games. They make Hail Caesar. They make freaking Sword and Musket or Black Powder. There's like they have a bunch of them. And they make like a World War II one. They have ones that cover the Civil War, Napoleonic War, Romans, everything. I mean, like Star Wars fans have been used and abused for so long. I don't think that there was time there wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The recent movies, because I will say, like with Star Wars, it's a bit different. Because Episode 7, I loved it. That was a good movie, and I don't know what the hell happened between the last two. So I mean, and the prequels, people shit on the prequels. I love the prequels. I love the prequels more than I like 4, 5, and 6. And people give me shit for that, but they can fucking stay by the wayside. I don't care, because I love the whole political scene, and I liked the fighting, and I liked everything about it. Now, like, I can see what they mean about like Jar Jar Binks being goofy as all hell. And there is that theory that like he was gonna be like a villain. He was gonna be like the goofy guy who turned out to be the villain, and he's like an evil wizard or something. I was like, I saw that fan theory about that. Now, if George Lucas ever came out and said, "Yeah, that was the plan," I would feel bad, because it's like he let fan opinion stop him from doing his vision, and it would have delivered. But I mean, even then, even if that wasn't the plan, and Jar Jar Binks was just some goofy ass character, I was fine with it. I had no problem with Jar Jar Binks. I have no problem with the Gungans at all. I was fine with it. He's not my favorite, but I don't think he took anything away from the movies or the shows or anything. And I mean, I loved Episode 1. I loved Episode 3 especially. I mean, Episode 2 was great, but 1 has the nostalgia for me, because like I remember seeing that in theaters. I remember watching like Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fight, and Qui-Gon dying. Like, that's just never going to be not a great moment. And then the whole fucking fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, I would watch all 3 movies just to see that fight scene. Like, that's next level shit to me. Like, they're all in it and freaking out, and they're upset, and they hate each other, but there's like love there. I loved it, man. It was great. And then people always shit on is it Hayden Christensen? It might be. They always shit on him for being a bad actor, but I think he was doing his role. Battletech and Shadowrun. See, Battletech is what Mech Assault was based on. So like Battletech is a pretty good one, which people heard of more now that they had the PC stuff come in. Yeah, now that they had the PC game of BattleTech show up, and then they also had the Shadowrun PC game, which was like something Hong Kong. Like, once they had those, people started hearing about them more, but Shadowrun definitely had a bigger name. But BattleTech, yeah, that was a tabletop game that's been around for a long time. And I remember seeing people playing that in my hobby shop when I was growing up. And I mean, it's not a thing for me, because like it's like that's the same as like the 40K Titans, in my opinion. So it's like it's just not a game for me. I don't even in 40K, I don't like just having Titans versus Titans. Like, I like the troops, I like the tanks, I like all that stuff. But I know BattleTech has some like troops and tanks you can do, but you don't really see people playing them. They just play a bunch of different mechs. Which, I mean, like, why wouldn't you if it's a big robot game? But those are pretty big ones. Yeah, one of the most underrated ones I gotta say for like tabletops probably is like Flames of War and Hail Caesar. Because I will say, Hail Caesar This is amazing. I have a 300-man Roman army and a 300-man Spartan army in my closet right now. Like, having... And it plays kind of similar to how Warhammer Fantasy used to play, with like block formations, and I love it. I think it's great. I would play that with my brother and stuff all the time. And Flames of War was another great one. It's 6mm, so it's the same as like 40k Epic, but it's World War II, so you're playing with like whole divisions of infantry and multiple tanks and stuff like that. So it was pretty good, and I love the 6mm scale because you can just get the size right. It's like some people sometimes want big, huge battles, and when you're playing in a 28mm scale like 40k, that's going to be a pain in the ass. Because you're not having all of those models on movement trays and stuff. For 40k they're all individual models, so it can suck sometimes. But with the 6mm, it's like, oh, okay, I have this squad. It's a single tile and there's 12 guys on it. So it's like, bloop, and they move. That's it. Takes 5 seconds. It's like, oh, I'll move my tank. It's like 1.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide. So it's like, bloop, done. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. But, I was looking into like the rules and stuff for like a 6mm musket one, where it's like I was gonna do like either the Civil War or Napoleonic, because I think stuff like that would be interesting too. Being able to do like Gettysburg. I think there's like something like 30,000 people there. Like, even that on a 6mm scale, you're talking a board that has to be at least probably 16 feet wide. It's pretty crazy. And I mean, I've seen some conventions and stuff where they've reenacted like Gettysburg and stuff like that at 28mm scale. So that's at 40k scale. So each model's like 1.5 inches, and they've got, like a shit ton of them there. I think there was one that made the news because they had like something like 20-some thousand models there. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, like stuff like that. I do love the having different scale games and stuff like that, and I gotta get back into them. And then nowadays, with COVID and stuff like that, you have people who are using a lot more Tabletop Simulator and Roll20, and so like some of this stuff is now easier and more affordable because it's like, oh, I pay $30 and I download some mods, and now I can play like 40k or Hail Caesar or 6mm whatever, because I have all the units, and that makes it easier on people. You also have people who are flocking to Roll20 to play like RPGs and stuff like that. So, I love it. I think, COVID and stuff, everybody has their struggles and stuff like that, but RPGs and stuff like that can still bring communities together. And I mean, some people could be toxic as hell, regardless. And whether or not it's online or in person, there's always that douche at the hobby store who's either a rules lawyer or he's got to be weird. Though we had at my hobby store I grew up in, we had this guy that we called TFG, and he was touchy-feely guy. Not because he touched any of us. He wouldn't touch people, but he would touch the models, and it didn't matter whether you were in the middle of a game or not. He would touch models. He would get really close, and it's like some people don't understand. Like it's one thing if like you have a 5-year-old kid or something and they walk up and touch your model, but if you're like an older kid, if you're 10 or above, you kind of understand that if you don't own shit, it ain't yours. Don't touch it. So it was kind of irritating. Like, me as a normal person, I would walk up, and if I saw something really cool, however they built it, or it's a new model that just came out, or he painted it really good, I'd be like, hey man, do you care if I pick this up and take a look at it? And if they said, no, it's kind of fragile, or it's not glued yet, or, yada yada, I'd be like, oh yeah, no problem. And then I'd just kind of stare at it. I wouldn't put my face up to it, because that's weird. But I'd look at it. But if he was like, yeah, sure, go ahead, and then you pick it up, and you take a look at it, and then you just don't drop it. just don't drop. That's number one rule. Don't drop it. And because like I had one time, this guy came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, your Land Raider looks great." And I had painted it. Took me like a couple weeks, and that's a $55 model, or might be $65 now. And he's like, "Hey, do you care if I pick it up and look at it?" I said, "Yeah, sure. It's not in the game right now, but be careful." So he picks up. Of course, he fucking drops it, and he doesn't drop it like onto the table. He drops it like straight onto the floor, and broke one of the last cannon sconces like in half. And I'm just looking at him like, "Dude," and he goes, "I'm so sorry." And he goes, "I'm like, dude, you fucked up my sponson. It's not gonna turn anymore if I fix it." He goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry." And he goes, I was like, "That's like a $65 model or like $55." And he's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Man, can you just leave my stuff alone?" I was just kind of pissed. I didn't want to be a dick, but I was kind of upset. Someone drops like a $55 model of yours. If it was a Space Marine, a regular tactical Marine, even some of my HQ units, they could be up to, if you have a librarian, they would be like $15, $20. If you had a commander, he'd be like $35, $45. And to be honest, like most of them are plastic. You drop them, I don't really care because I'll just glue them back together and I'll repaint it, and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. But like with the Land Raider, like that thing's a bitch to put together. It was a bitch to paint, and the sponson broke, and I was kind of irritated because I knew the only way I could fix it is by gluing it and like filing it down, and that means that the sponsons won't tilt up and down anymore. And I was like, I was like, damn it, man. I was like, that sucks. I'm like, whatever. Oh well. I mean, it's like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna charge him $10 because of that? It's like I could still use it, But it sucks, stuff like that. But like, yeah, this touchy-feely guy, this dude didn't give a shit whether your model was on the board in the game or off of it. He didn't care. He'd be like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, that looks cool." He would put his face like an inch away from the model, and then he'd pick them up and stuff sometimes. Like in the middle of a game, I had him do that, and he screwed me. I had a dreadnought. He liked how I painted it. He picked it up, looked at it, put it back, and I measured the charge distance because I was charging in a melee. I had the charge range before, but when I measured it again, I didn't. And I was like, I don't have the charge range now. And he's like, luckily my opponent was like so fucking nice. He's like, "No, I saw him move it. You're fine. You can charge." And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool," because otherwise I'd be screwed. And it was like so fucking annoying. Like he would just move shit in the middle of a game. And yeah, he did that a few times, and then like one time, me and my buddy who were playing, we got really upset with him. So he like came over and he's like, "Oh man, that's really cool." Goes to reach the table. I said, "Hey, we're playing a game. Don't fucking touch the models that are on the board. Actually, don't touch my shit without asking. How old are you?" And he's like old as my like dad at the time. He was like in his 40s, and I'm like a teenager. And he's like, "Oh, I mean, I just thought it looked cool." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm like in my teens." I was like, "I'm 16 and I know I'm not supposed to touch shit that ain't mine. Is any of this stuff yours?" And he's like, "Well, no." And I'm like, "So why don't you just ask?" It's just funny how you just catch some people and it wasn't a thing of like he was just like a complete asshole and was just like, "Oh, I know it's not mine. I'm gonna touch it anyways." He was one of those people, and I don't know if it's better or worse. He didn't even think of that being a possibility. He was just like, "Oh, I didn't even think that you'd have to ask. I just thought I could do it." And it's like, all right, well, that's not good. It's Gordo slapping an old man with newspapers or something. No, I didn't have to get that bad. I didn't. There was never really any moments where I had to actually like get physical with anyone at the hobby shop. I mean, I wouldn't. If I had to, but it just never would escalate to that point, because like most of the time, like I had some people get a little pissed with me about dumb shit, or like they disagreed with me, and I'd just be like, okay. But like I had one guy, I was playing a game with him, and he did it twice. So like that's one thing is like I normally kind of I'll say something to someone and I'll give them a chance to change, and if they don't, then I'm done. I'll move on or I'll stop socializing with them. So there's one guy, and he ended up becoming a good friend of mine, but he would rage all the time, and so it wasn't like he was a sore loser. Like if he failed any test at any time with dice, he was mad, and I'm like, what? And yeah, the first game I played, we were going. He was doing pretty good and he was winning, and he had some guys die. He's getting mad and he's like cussing. And he's throwing his dice around, and he'd like throw his models into the box and stuff like that and break some of them. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, that's weird. And he ended up winning the game, and he's like, oh, that was great fun. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, I said, yeah, but you're kind of like going overboard when you like fail some tests and stuff. I said, you got to calm that down, man. It's, sometimes there's kids in the store and stuff like that. And I said, you're being a little crazy. And he goes, all right, yeah, I understand. So then like the next week I play with him again, and he's just like doing the same shit. And I'm winning at this point. So he's doing it more often, and I just stop. And I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to call it. I'm going to go ahead and quit. And he goes, why? You're winning. And I'm like, because you're not making this fun. I said, you're over here throwing dice and freaking out and all this shit. I said, you blew up my tank in one shot. My Land Raider, the most expensive unit in my army at the moment besides my commander, didn't even get to shoot a shot. First turn, dead. Did you see me throw a fucking fit? And he's like, no. I was like, you're a grown ass man. You're a Marine. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. I was like, I don't have to deal with this. And he goes, oh no, man, come on, I'll do better. And I'm like, I said maybe next time. So I packed up my stuff. I was like, I told him see it. And I left and went and got some lunch and went home. But yeah, I came back like a couple weeks later, and I played him again in a smaller game, and yeah, he was fine. So I mean, some people you just gotta talk to him and stuff like that. But it's like, you gotta remember, I mean, the golden rule that I always say for like all my RPGs and stuff is the same across the board with any of your hobbies. The goal is to have fun and relax, I don't go to a hobby store and play games because I want to get stressed out and start yelling at people or get into a fight. That's not what I do. That's why dumbasses go to bars and get drunk. People who go to bars and get drunk and stuff like that, those are the people who want to get into fights. People who go to a hobby shop are looking to have fun and connect with people who have the same interests as them, make friends, and have a good time. So like you start dealing with people who are shouting and freaking out and all this about what's going on, it's not worth it. But I had some crazy moments. So I don't know if I told it on stream. I think I've told it during like some of my games, but there was a moment that was messed up where my buddy Mikos, he's my hobby shop was in like a Marine Corps town. It was in Camp Lejeune. So I had a shit ton of friends that were coming and going because they were Marines. And one of them was this guy, Mikos. And he was funny as hell because, like, one time we're playing a game and he's, like, rolling some D6s and eating some M&Ms. And he's rolling these dice sixes, eating some M&Ms. And then all of a sudden he rolls these M&Ms across the board to me. I'm like, what the fuck? And he says, I'll be right back. And then leaves. And he says it with his mouth closed. So he's, like, leaving. I'm like, and he's just like, watch my stuff. And I'm like, okay. So he's gone for like an hour. I'm like, all right, well, I guess he's not coming back. I pack up his stuff. I put it in the back room, and I tell Mr. Dan, who runs the shop, I'm like, hey, I put Mikos' stuff in the back room. I guess just, hopefully no one steals it or something. And he's like, yeah, no one will back there. And I'm like, cool. So then I leave and I come back, and like, it's like a week, maybe a week and a half, and I see him again, and he's like, I'm like, dude, where the fuck were you? Your stuff's in the back. And he goes, oh, thanks, man. He goes, I broke 3 teeth. And I'm like, how? And he goes, I rolled the M&Ms and I threw the D6s into my mouth and I bit down on them. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I was like, that's fucked. He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, broke 3 teeth. And I was like, gosh. This is also the same guy who he would take his D6s to like his local church, and he said he would wash them in holy water so that they could roll better, and he would refuse to use new dice and stuff like that. I'm like, good. I was like, good lord, man, you're funny. Um, but yeah, he was a trip. There was a oh, what was it? There was one thing I was thinking about today. I I had when I first was moving out, so when I had my own apartment, I had my appendix like it was trying to kill me. So I went with my parents and I went to the hospital, got my appendix removed, and that it wasn't that bad to be honest. Like I was like in and out in like 3 days, but like the night before, I was throwing up like constantly, and it was to the point where like I would start drinking water just so I had something to throw up because it like just hurt. And like yeah, that was rough with my appendix. But when the thing that blew my mind is that like 6 months later, I got appendicitis again because apparently they had left an amount of my appendix the size of a quarter, and the doctor said it reattached itself, and inflamed again. Your brother's ruptured, dude? Yeah, mine didn't rupture. They just it. I had appendicitis once. I thought they removed it all. Apparently, they left just enough of my appendix in there that I got it again 6 months later, and I was so pissed because like the second time it hurt so bad, like from my groin all the way up to my stomach, it just hurt all over, and it was funny because like I'm in the lobby of the emergency room and I'm sitting there and I had to wait like an hour and I'm in a lot of pain and I'm throwing up into these bags, and the bag dispensers on the wall, all they had were clear bags, and I don't know why they're clear. Maybe there's a reason, but it's gross. And I'm sitting there throwing up and I'm upset and embarrassed because like I'm around a shit ton of people and I'm just throwing up, and I'd look up and some people were like obviously upset by it, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And this black guy next to me just like slaps me on the back and goes, ah, player, we know why we're here. And I'm like, I was like, I thought that was so nice for him to kind of reassure me that it's like, hey man, shit happens, it's whatever. And I'm like, I was like, that made me feel a bit better. But then I get in there, and of course I have to answer these like 20 questions with the nurse, and I don't know what's wrong with me at this point. I'm just in a lot of pain, and I have a fever and I'm freaking out. I don't know what's going on. They keep asking me if I had an STD, and I'm like, I better not be. Like, I've only been with the one woman. I'm like, I better not, because then she's gonna have to answer for some shit. And I was like, if an STD can do that to you, I'm scared to ever have sex ever again, because like I was like hurting all over, and and like I was like throwing up and I had a crazy fever, but she gave me like a pain medicine and I like immediately passed out. And then next I'm like in the hospital room, and the doctor comes in and he does the same shit, asks me some questions and stuff, and then he's like, we're gonna run some tests and I'll get back with you. I'm like, okay. And then fucking the nurse comes in and she's like, all right, I'm gonna need you to pee into this cup. You have 5 minutes or I'm gonna put a catheter in you. And I've never been under so much pressure in my fucking life, where I'm like, let me get this straight. You're giving me 5 minutes to pee, or you're gonna shove a tube in my pee hole? She's like, yeah. And I'm scared shitless, and I'm sweating, and I'm like, oh my god. And I'm like, I gotta pee. So I'm like drinking as much water as I can get my hands on, and I'm thinking of nothing but Niagara Falls and anything else that could possibly be wet. I'm like running the sink, and yeah, unfortunately I didn't win that battle. And she came in there and she's like, you gotta get a catheter. And she's just the meanest person that could have been doing it. Like some people worry that they'll go to the doctors or something, and if it's a girl, they're like, oh, I don't want to get a boner, she has to check my balls or something. It's like, nah man, you need to be afraid of a nurse who doesn't give a shit about you, jamming a catheter in there because like she just like comes in there, got gloves on and stuff, puts some gel on this plastic tube, and she just lifts up my gown, just grabs my freaking thing like it's a fucking like she's mean, like she's like motherfucker, like just grabs me, and I'm like ow, and she's like oh calm down, and I'm like what? I'm like I was like I don't think that's how this works, and she goes you're gonna feel pressure. I'm gonna let you know, you don't feel pressure, you feel pain. There's just not pain. You feel pain going in, and it's just pain. And then, but what I will say, once it's in, you're good. It's a lot of pain going in, and then you just feel like you're peeing constantly once it's in there, which is weird because it's like you feel like you're peeing all the time now, and then all of a sudden, sometimes you just notice that all of a sudden there's pee flowing into a bag that's next to you. It was weird. But yeah, it did hurt. It sucked. It wasn't the best thing ever. And then after that, she left me alone, thank God. And the doctor comes in, and the doctor's like, fucking, he's just like, hey, so you look like you have appendicitis. And he looks like all smug, like, oh, he figured it out. And I'm like, yeah, no, I had my appendix removed 6 months ago. I can't have appendicitis. And he looks at me, and he looks at my chart, and he stammers, and he's like, all right, hold on, we gotta run some more tests. And I'm like, fucking great. So I'm like, now they don't know what's wrong with me. I just got violated with a plastic tube. It's a rough day. And so he leaves. I don't see him for like another 2 or 3 hours. They do some more tests, and he comes back, and he's like this fucking smug smile on him, and he's like, you do have appendicitis. Like he's Sherlock fucking Holmes, and he cracked the case, and he's like, there was a piece of your appendix that was left in there from the previous surgery. And I was like, so y'all fucked up? And he's like, well, that surgeon doesn't work here anymore. I'm like, oh, that's fucking convenient. But I had medical coverage at the time, so I'm going to tell you, it cost me like $30 or something to have both surgeries. So I didn't really give a shit, but I should have sued. That's what I keep getting told. I should have sued. I should have sued for fucking getting violated with the plastic tube. I don't know if that was 100% necessary, but they had to prep me for surgery, and this time I'm like, I get out of surgery and I'm waking up and I hurt all over. And this fucking surgeon comes in and he goes, I'm like, dude, this is worse than the last one. Like, I really hurt. And he goes, yeah, it was easy to get in there because of the last appendicitis scars, but yeah, I had to rummage around there just to make sure that there wasn't any more appendix. And I'm like, fucking just, he was like rummaging. That's his word. That's a word he used. I'm like, he's just fucking digging in there, moving shit around just to make sure that he doesn't fuck up like the last guy. But that sucked. I was in the hospital for I think like 3 weeks for that one. And it really sucked. But when I got out, and I'm gonna let you know, fucking same nurse came to pull the catheter out. And I'm like, she had to ask for this. I was like, there's no way 3 weeks later, the same nurse just so happens to be like the fucking same one that's going to pull out her handiwork. Like, that's ridiculous. But it was, and it happened. And she's just like, all right, you're going to feel some pressure. And I'm like, that's what you said last time. And there wasn't pressure, it was pain. She goes, well, I mean, yeah. And then that's it. And then she started pulling, and it hurt like a bitch. I didn't like it, and it felt bad, and it made me sad on the inside. But, they call it a medical procedure. But, yeah, the shitty part of it, was obviously I had like a lot of abdominal pain from them digging around in my guts looking for my appendix. But the fucking like the catheter thing, for like 2 weeks after I got home, I would have moments where I'd be sitting on the couch and I'd really have to pee, and then I go to the bathroom and nothing comes out. And then sometimes I would just be sitting there minding my own business and I'd piss my pants. And I had no control over when I peed anymore. And that was constant for like 2 weeks until I finally like was okay. But I thought that was a weird side effect where it was just like, I just randomly pissed my pants and stuff. Now one thing I did is You were violated by a rubber wire. How does that make you feel? It made me feel bad. It just made me feel sad on the inside. It wasn't a great experience for me. It was funny though. Thinking back to it, it's pretty funny because she was just me. Like like every time she grabbed me, it wasn't like it's like most people have like fantasies and stuff about that kind of crap. Not me, and she was definitely not trying to fill that role. She would grab me in a way where it's like I felt like I had wronged her, and I tried to apologize. I don't know what I did, but she was mean, and she'd just be like, "You motherfucker!" I'm like, why are you so vulgar? Like, but no, but I mean, she was strictly just business. There was no reassuring or anything like that. She wasn't trying to ease it. The only like kind of sympathy she gave me was when she was like, "You're gonna feel pressure," and not telling me the realness of, yeah, it's gonna hurt like a bitch, but it'll be okay. Like she should have just given it to me straight. But yeah, that sucked ass. That was bad. Um, besides that, there was yeah, she was an angry lady. She was mean. She probably hates men or something. Who knows? But there was one time when I was in high school where I cut and I still have the scar for it, but I cut like about probably a 6 or 8 inch cut down from my knee towards my ankle with an ice skate because I decided to go ice skating with my friends while wearing shorts. Which I'm gonna tell you, actually, it wasn't even my idea. My friends were freaking like borderline like OCD or something, or I don't know, what is it, ADD or ADHD, whichever one that distracts them and makes them like look in different directions and stuff. Because they would come up to me and sometimes they'd be like, "Hey man, let's go grab some lunch," and like, "Oh, that makes sense." And then other times they'd be like, "Hey man, we're going ice skating on a random Tuesday. Do you want to go?" And it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess why not? I mean, how much does it cost? $6? Yeah, sure, fuck it, let's go. It's like, you're wearing shorts. I'm like, I didn't know I was going ice skating. He goes, "Well, we don't have time to go by your house." I'm like, "So what's the fucking solve here?" He goes, "I guess you're ice skating in shorts. Thanks. That was my plan, bud." So like we went ice skating, and I got the ice skates on, and I've never done it before. But I was just, I'm one of those people. I'm simple. I'm very happy. Oh, it is HDHD. ADHD. I can't even talk. I can't. Thanks, Radic. Thanks for telling me what it is, but I can't even speak. But I'm very simple. So like when it comes to ice skating, some of my friends were like over there and they're doing fancy shit and letting go of the wall and spinning. I'm over here just kind of holding onto the wall and gliding, and I'm having the time of my life. I'm doing the same shit that a 5-year-old would do when they're ice skating, but I'm loving it. And of course, one of my fucking friends, she's got to come over and she's like, "Oh, Alex, you should let go of the wall and give it a try." And I'm like, but the wall and me are like friends, and I was like, I'm vibing here. And they're like, "Just do it." So I let go of the wall, and immediately I go and I just fucking flip. And one of my freaking ice skates like goes down my leg and cuts it. And yeah, they had to like clean the ice because I had blood on it and I had a big old cut. Um, I mean, I didn't really care about the cut, to be honest. The fucking cut, all I did was put like band-aids on it and shit like that. And eventually it got well. I didn't even go to the doctor. So like it wasn't a big deal. But I just, they're over there like, it's like, you take Alex anywhere, he gets hurt. And I'm like, that's a damn lie. I'm like, it's like 2 out of 5 times I'll get hurt. Um, because like I did good. I mean, sometimes I do get hurt in interesting ways. I got hurt one time in when we went pumpkin picking for like we were picking out a pumpkin for jack-o'-lantern. To be honest though, that wasn't my fault. Like I think the pallets that the pumpkins were on were just out too far. But yeah, I kind of like tripped on a pallet and fell like face first into a pumpkin. Which by the way, pumpkins are hard as shit if you don't know this. So like I dented the pumpkin and it was like kind of broken, but it wasn't like in the movies. Like I didn't smash the pumpkin with my head. I more bounced off than anything, and it hurt like a bitch. I'm sure the pumpkin will walk it off, but I was fucked up. Um, and then I got hurt when we did laser tag one time. But to be honest, that wasn't my fault. My friend Zach, we're playing laser tag, and I round a corner, and he just straight rifle butts me like with the fucking laser rifle. Well, it's more of a pistol whip because they don't have a back. He just smacks me across the face with the damn thing. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? And he was like, you got too close and I meleeed you. I was like, this ain't Call of Duty. I was like, it's laser tag. I kicked him in the balls and I ran. Because I felt like that was the appropriate response. But yeah, he like fucked up the right side of my face. I was like, I had a cut and stuff because he smacked me with that gun. And the fucking owner is like, how did you get hurt? And I'm like, I don't know. I tripped and fell. He's like, most of this stuff's padded. And I'm like, I fell. I was like, this is what it is. It's like, stop asking questions. But yeah, it was fucking interesting. But I think what was it? There was one time my little brother, he's 10 years younger than me. And when he was like about probably 5 or 6, this was about the time when Beowulf came out, the animated film. You know, with like Scarlett Johansson. No, wait, no, not fucking Scarlett Johansson. Why am I saying Scarlett Johansson? With fucking Annalena Jolie. And that's about the only person I can remember their name from that movie. But yeah, it was a really good movie. You know, where he like kills fucking Grendel and stuff like that. And my brother's watching that movie like on repeat. And there's a part where, you know, Beowulf jumps on Grendel and he's just punching him in the head. So like I'm watching the movie with my little brother and I go to stand up and my little brother had climbed onto the couch and jumps onto my back and starts just wailing me in the neck and stuff. And he's like, I am Beowulf. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I fall on the ground. And we have a closet in our room, in our living room. So I'm falling on the ground. I reach for the closet door and I open it and I'm just kind of like dragging and stuff. And I'm like trying to climb into the closet to get away from him. And he's just like starts slamming the closet door on my arm and stuff. And he's like, I'm Slasher Terror Beowulf. And I'm like, stop. I'm like getting pissed off and I stand up. He was ridiculous. He was also one, he learned at a very young age to punch people in the groin. And yeah, he learned to not do that to me real quick because when I was in high school when he was learning to do this. So my friends would do that shit all the time. So he ran up to me one time and he punched me in the junk. And as a reaction, I immediately just threw my arm out and smacked him in the junk. But it was funny because he punches me and I'm like, ah, and I smack him and he just goes, my winky, and falls on the ground. And I'm just laughing my ass off at this kid. And my mom comes in, she's like, what's going on in here? I was like, I don't know, he started it. I was like, he hit me in the junk and I punched him in his. She goes, you can't do that, he's a little kid, blah blah blah. And I'm like, he knew what he was doing. But yeah, he's a crazy guy. And what was it? Because me and my brothers, we were so freaking like mean to each other sometimes. Like we just talk shit to each other. Like just bust each other's chops and stuff. And one of the running jokes is that like if you don't currently have a girlfriend, then that means you're gay. And I don't know why we started doing that, but it's always funny. Because it's like they've gotten to the point where like they don't even like defend themselves, they'll lean into it. So like my older brother, he's in the Marines and he came by and he's like telling me about the stuff he was doing and like, you know, where he goes and stuff like that. And I'm like, and I was like, so are you like in love with these men now? Like, do you have a boyfriend and stuff? And he goes, well, he's like, no, we just all kind of take turns sleeping with each other. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, that's nasty. But like, yeah, they're freaking hilarious dudes. It's funny as hell to deal with them. And my dad, he's got a sense of humor with him. It's funny as hell. Like he used, when I was growing up, he used to put ketchup on every damn thing, like everything. So like, you know, chicken and dumplings, cornbread, anything. He didn't care. He'd put ketchup on it. He was that guy. Like he would put ketchup on his mac and cheese. And one time somebody got him a gift, which was like a wooden box with a glass panel, and it had a little hammer, and inside was a small bottle of glass ketchup, like a glass bottle of ketchup, like Heinz. And it said break in case of emergency. So it was like one of those. So he mounted it like in the dining room and it was a joke. Well, one time he was having like his favorite meal, and it was one of those meals where he had to have ketchup. Like even to this day, like he doesn't do ketchup on everything anymore. But there's this one meal, chicken and dumplings, he has to have ketchup. I'm like, okay. And if you don't know what chicken and dumplings is, it's like chicken soup with big chunks of chicken in it, and then on top of that, like a scoop of like biscuit mix. So it makes this like congealed biscuity thing. Just Google it. It's really hard, but like people make it every different way, and it was strange, but it was a meal I grew up with, and it was good. Um, but he's like he doesn't have ketchup. We don't have any ketchup in the house, and he's not going back out, to the store or anything. So he's like, I see him like sigh and take a deep breath, and he's like, and he looks at the case that's on the wall, and then he looks back at his plate, and he's like, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then he just goes, reaches, and he grabs the hammer, and he breaks the glass, and he takes the ketchup, and he starts using it, and I couldn't stop fucking laughing. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And yeah, that blew my mind away. That's the shit he would do. And one time we were on a road trip, and my dad was married once before, but he didn't have kids with the woman, and she was in the Marine. He was in the Marine Corps, and she was too at the time. And but now it's me, my brothers, and my mom, and him. We're driving, and we're going up to New Jersey to see family. And as we're driving by, my mom randomly just goes, "Oh, isn't that where so and so lives now?" And that's like his old wife. But of course, we didn't know shit about her because why would who cares? That's how he explained it. Was like, I don't get, what does it matter? Like, I never knew her name. I never knew what she looked like. I didn't know anything. And so, like, I got all this information. They were in the Marines and stuff, like, all of a sudden. And he's like, yeah, she's a cop now. She's always been a bit more manly, like a bit butch. And I just, I just randomly go, huh, Dad married a lesbian. And everybody starts laughing. And my dad just goes, all right, quiet time now. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. Like, I was like, that's fair. I was like, all right. Because it's not often do you ever get to like crack jokes on your dad. Well, not, for my dad at least, he's always been the one. Like he'll make some jokes and I'll make jokes with him, but he's never been the butt of a joke normally. But yeah, he's a funny guy, and my mom, she's funny too. But I got both the you when you get older, you start realizing what you get from your parents and stuff, and I realized that I got a combination of their sense of humor because my mom has a dark sense of humor, and it's funny, but my dad has this like gay joke kind of college dude humor, and I have a little bit of that, which I find hilarious. But it's like constantly, I get my mom will ask me like, "Where did you learn to say that?" And I'm like, "My dad," because my dad was just funny as hell, and he's just hilarious. But all right, I think we've gone over an hour today, so I think I'm gonna call it. I've shared enough, and yep, like Radix said, sharing is caring. I need an art piece out of these moments. I don't know if I want it as an art piece, and I definitely don't want my pee getting a catheter to be an art piece because that's horrifying. I don't want anyone to see that. No one should see that. But yeah, it's interesting. But hey, man, thanks for tuning in again. Like always, I'm Gordo the Guardsman. My recommendation for this podcast at the end so far is like media and stuff like that. There's a book series called Starfist. It's by it's like Dan, Greg, and let me double check real quick because it's a book series from the '90s. I think the earliest book was like '97. So you're gonna want to go to First to Fight, Starfist. That's book one. There's like something like 9 or 10 books, and I've read them all. They're all amazing. It takes place in the 25th century, so it's in like the 2400, 2500s, same as like Halo. But these are like the Marine Corps in space. They have plasma weapons. They have chameleon cloaks. Like they can blend in and stuff like that, and it's just impressive. It's written by David Sherman and Dan Craig. Both were veterans, and as far as like giving that military like the military aesthetic and theme across, they hit it on the nose, and it's an amazing book series. So I would say if you are interested in sci-fi stuff, and if you're a fan of Halo or anything like that, you should definitely take a look at Starfist. It is amazing. Um, it goes from like them dealing with like rebels and stuff like that to running into aliens for the first time, and their take on like aliens and technology is so different and like refreshing. Like it's just next level shit. Like you just wouldn't expect it to be the way it is. And it's worth a read. It's amazing. But I think I'm gonna call it there for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, take a look at the YouTube, all that. We have a Halo campaign that's still kicking off on Thursdays. I definitely recorded the last session. Definitely going to record the next one. I'm making sure I'm double and triple checking to make sure it's recording now. Um, Saturdays are now my buddy Matthew. He ran a Mutant Epic one shot. Everybody seemed to like it. And so this Saturday is session 0. We're going to talk about character creation, and he wants to run another campaign. I think we're leaning towards being like Mutant Epic, like, Marines or something like that. It's going to be some interesting shit. And then what else? Fridays is 40k Informant. Saturdays is the Mutant Epic. Thursdays is Halo, and then Mondays I'm in a game, another Halo game. I haven't been recording it because I don't run it. Um, I'll talk to the what's that based off of? What based off, Radic? Are you talking about Starfist, or what are we talking about? You gotta be more specific. I just listed like 12 things. But yeah, Monday I'm gonna talk to him. Maybe I'll start recording it. I want to do something else on some of the other days, Tuesdays or Thursdays. I want to. Well, no, Thursdays I am doing something. I have a Halo game, but maybe like earlier in the day on Thursdays. Oh, Saturday. So Mutant Epic is its own standalone RPG. Um, so it's like it still uses D100s, so it's a D100 system, but it is different. It's very interesting. You should definitely look it up and take a look at it. Yeah, mutant. Here, I'll type it in the chat, but it's Mutant Epic. Yeah, Mutant Epoch, and you should definitely check the one shot that we did in on the YouTube, because it was really good. We had one of our players who was trying to molest a snake lady. We had to fight a giant frog, fought some spiders, and we had to try to escape with our lives. And we did our best. So it's pretty interesting because we were able to do it all in one session. So he did a great job delivering a one shot, and everybody seemed to like it. We liked the system. We liked playing as the characters, and we're gonna be having a session 0 this Saturday, and see what kind of campaign we're gonna be doing. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be good. But yeah, I do want to start doing another stream sometime, maybe Tuesdays or Thursdays, like Thursday earlier in the day. But I don't know what yet. I was thinking of maybe like dabbling with some of the map makers that I own, and showing like how I create maps and stuff like that. Uh, but I'm not really sure yet. But I have a suggestion box on the Twitch channel, and also you can just post on the YouTube channel, in the comments and stuff like that. Just let me know like what you guys have an idea about of what would be another good stream, because it's like I do want to do some other stuff where it's like I don't even care if it's like world building or like map making or whatever, but yeah, I want to start doing something, so I'm gonna I'm gonna figure that out and start doing it. Otherwise, I'm open to suggestions. But I'm gonna call it here. Thanks for tuning in. You guys just keep an eye out. Check the YouTube, check Twitch. Twitch has the suggestion box. YouTube, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.